Hello, beautiful sisters, and welcome back to HB Ministries. It has been a little bit of time, and honestly, today was supposed to be our launch day for the spring study. So, you are going to notice in today's title right here, it's all about God's timing, it's His schedule. But what's the lobster have to do with it? What does the lobster have to do with it? Well, I am praying that this is a word for you also in your season. If you are new to HB Ministries, welcome. We do a workbook right here called the Dream and Explore, and we use it all year round. And it has 4 quarters in it. We're in the second quarter right now. If you have it, you know. But in the workbook, we have a life wheel. This life wheel is consistent with all areas of our life. And God calls us to write dreams and visions down in our book. Now, when we begin to write dreams that are big, because He's saying, put it all down, dream big, sister. But here's what's kind of the trick here. This is where all the molting process begins. When you dream big for your marriage, when you dream big for your kids, when you dream big for the ministry, God is going to do a little molting. What happens after 6 to 8 years when a lobster is in its shell? It begins to go through a molting process. That means that its shell cracks. There's some pinching and there's some pressure going on, and that lobster is forced out of that shell, and it is bare naked. Now, have you ever seen a naked lobster before? I was wondering, what does that look like? Do you see how big that shell is and how little this lobster is? Your dreams are so big that God is creating a new place, a new space for you to carry that dream. And sometimes He will push us out of our comfort zone. He will take us away from a situation to readjust us and renew us, give us a set of new revelation. But we have to be willing not to force ourselves back into that old shell. Also, to keep in that shell when it's pinching and hurting and it's wanting to break off of us, when it splits, God says, move out. In Matthew chapter 9, it says you cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. Back in the day when they were fermenting wine and smashing grapes and preparing the juice, they would always have a new wineskin. The old wineskins were cracked, they were old, and if you were to do that, all of the dreams, let's say, would seep out, would break through. God is doing something new in your life, and He wants you to put the new in a new wineskin. Now, what does that mean? What does this all mean? What does the lobster mean? I want you to take this word in your season, look at your life wheel if you are in the Dream and Explore workbook, and also if you are part of HB Ministries, please lean in a little bit so you understand how God got a hold of me when I was holding on to a shell for HB Ministries, that part of my life wheel, and really having a hard time dealing with change. And sometimes whatever change we're going through, we deal with change in secret. Now, what happens when a lobster actually breaks out of its shell? It goes and hides in areas of the rocks until its new shell grows back. And here's something even more amazing. It takes its old shell with him, and he eats that shell for calcium, and that shell becomes part of his new shell. So a lot of times God's not asking you to leave everything. He may say, take parts of this, but know that as I'm giving you new revelation, I'm teaching you new areas of faith. You're going from glory to glory, because we should always be growing in the faith. If you can look back 3 years and not see where you have grown in the faith or stayed consistent, I would ask you to examine yourself and how are you walking in the anointing of God? Are you seeing favor in areas of your lives? When there is favor in your life, God may do some molting in the process. He may be doing molting in your marriage, molting with a relationship. So that is an uncomfortable time. Change is uncomfortable. Come with me to understand what you do in that process. Again, we were supposed to launch Bloom Study, which is right here, By the way, it's being launched on May 13th. Stay tuned to the very end of this video so you can get all of the deets because they are good. Dealing with some stuff that God was telling me he wanted to change, taking me through a molting, but trying to stay in control of a calendar at the same time. Now, here is the secret. If God is conveying a new message with you, maybe he's conveying a message on how he is working in your husband in regards to your marriage or you personally, and he's breaking some things off of you, breaking some old patterns and old habits and old attitudes, and he's wanting to shape anew. Sometimes you are going to fight the building process because you don't like the feel of the uncomfort. Amen? Anybody been there? If you have, drop me an emoji below. Do you like feeling uncomfortable? Drop some sort of like sad emoji, like no. And if you have been through the molting process and experienced God do something through you in the change, and now you are on the other side, give an emoji of a heart, like a thumbs up, like, yes, I'm there. I understand what you're saying. If you know what I'm saying in the process, you can probably relate to where you are in the process with an emoji. We speak emojis nowadays, right? So if you know what those are, I'd love for you to drop one below. And if you can find the lobster, I'll know that you listened. Drop a lobster below and your word for the year. I'd love to see lobster and your word for the year. Let me speak to why I'm asking you what your word for the year is now. Mine is alignment. Well, when I speak the word alignment over my life for 2024, I know that God may be thinking ahead of time and gave me that word because he's going to realign some things. I can't see the future, but God can. Well, with some molting, some pressure, some cracks, and really trying to get a hold of me and push me out of this old shell so that he could take the new things that he was creating and place them in a new time, a new calendar, a new structure to prepare even more so for 2025, I needed to come in alignment. It took a major surgery and an illness after the surgery, horrible sinus infection. The whole house got it. And just this time of rest. Again, keyword rest. I want to ask you a question. Are you in a season of rest because you're recovering, rest and recovery from maybe an illness, a surgery? Maybe you're resting because you're grieving due to change. This rest and recovery looks very different from rest and renewal. And I'm going to show you how God used a surgery and rest and a little bit of sickness and rest. So I want to show you how God uses rest in your life to bring about a revelation, whether you're resting from a surgery, resting from a sickness, resting because you're in a season of grieving and you're just tired. Whatever your rest is, God is using that season. And I want to show you how that season may be a season that he's preparing you to speak a revelation in a certain area of your life wheel. Sometimes God can really speak when we're resting. So I was resting from surgery, knowing in my mind, we are pumping out this next study right after I'm done with surgery. Everything's going to go into the next direction. Now, yes, God likes something planned. He likes everything in order. He's an orderly God. But sometimes we have to be careful that our plans and our commitments, that we don't have too much dependence on that and not on dependence of God in the new, in the fresh that he wants to pour in a new wineskin. This can get a little confusing, and it did for me. And I wanted to be sure before I spoke this that the enemy is also the author of confusion, but God is the author of peace. When God began to bring things all together, I knew right away it was me trying to keep consistent with a schedule that God a long time ago was trying to change. And so sometimes we get in the way of God's schedule. Well, he used this time of rest from my surgery, rest from being sick, and then here I am with my schedule. My husband comes in and says we're taking a longer vacation. I'm thinking in my head, well, that longer vacation is not matching up with everything that I just posted in a newsletter that we've had planned. But I didn't say anything. And as we go away, which my husband, being the hard worker of this family, being the provider, the protector, the provisionary, he is such a steadfast hard worker that this was needed. And we usually take a trip. As a matter of fact, we've been taking trips. We're looking for a place in Florida where we can go away and I can already be there kind of, and he has this place to regroup to. So in the process of all of this, we go down and he's in this place where he's saying, I'm resting and recovering from work and labor. And I'm so excited to experience the goodness and rest right alongside of you. Well, that does not mean that I am on Amazon, I am editing, I am getting videos set up, I am planning to teach. Usually he is fine with me teaching because a lot of times we are in Florida during those months. So it's just like home away from home. We do our work there. This rest looked different for him. One thing I will say, it is God first, my family, and then the ministry. God was speaking using this interruption, which God will also use, not only sickness, delays, interruptions, to speak to you. And God was slowing me down and reminding me the ministry, the work, the calendar is all independence on me. What am I doing through your husband? What could God be speaking in an area of your life wheel that may be helping you in another area? So as I rely on God, we are resting and just enjoying God's goodness. We were going to museums. My husband loves museums. I'm not a big museum girl, but I knew. That morning he woke up, he goes, let's go on a museum. Let's get bikes. Let's go on a bike ride. We were busy from the morning we got up till we went to bed, and we went to bed early. We would cook together, plan meals together, just baked in the goodness of God because rest builds relationships. So all this rest was a different kind of rest coming out of the rest from my surgery. When you come out of a surgery and you have major anesthetics and all that anesthesiology and all of that, your body's in a different place of tired. It's not even a place of focus. So you're resting your body to recharge to come back. So I recharged to come back. And when I came back, there was a different rest that was initiated when my husband said, we're going to go for a longer period of time. As we're down there resting, I'm resting in God's dependence. I'm resting in building this relationship. I'm resting in enjoying God's blessing. I'm truly resting because this is where my husband wanted to go. Remember, God, family, ministry. So as we're down there resting, God also brings revelation during deep rest. This was the rest where I really needed to hear from God. As we were examining shells, some shells still had everything alive in them. You know those, I don't know the names of them. We were looking them up on the computer that still has the snail living in it. We would look and smell to see if the snail, and if he was still living, we'd throw it back. We have several where they were not living, and we brought these home with us. And we begin to look up just different things in sea life and how it loses its shell and what loses its shell, because you would see all kinds of empty shells laying along the beach. Well, isn't it interesting how God speaks to you? We must leave the old to be filled with the new. And God begins to open up and said, listen, you had a rest, you have another rest, and now it's ready for a reset. God is going to be doing a new thing in HB Ministries. You will see this launch forward more in 2025 because God works upstream, but sometimes it takes a lot of us and a lot for us to come out of the comfort zone and go through the molting process. We take a little bit more time, and God will do everything He can to break us out of this shell. Amen. To give a little pressure, to pinch us a little, to push us out. I felt those pinchings, and I felt that pressure, and I was stuck with, yeah, I see that we're doing the same old song and dance, but I know the women like it. And I know this, and I know this. And as I fully came out of the shell on vacation, I felt so vulnerable to change, so vulnerable to say, well, wait a minute, we're not going to start. Well, God has laid out, kind of at the beginning of this year in quarter one, that we were going to start doing studies quarterly. which means we have 3 months and a quarter. It could be a 4-week study, a 6-week study, a month of workshops, a month of inner circle, but the shape of how studies are going to be done is going to be different. If you've been here, you know that I've spoke that. Sometimes we know something's coming, but we don't know how to walk in it. You know something's coming, but you don't know how to walk in it. This is where you need to ask God for the revelation. And sometimes we don't even get in a place of asking or seeing or noticing till we're resting. And during that rest, that stop moment, a revelation from God comes. He will speak through creatures. He will speak through somebody in your life. He could speak to somebody in the grocery store. But when you're rested, you are aware. So here we are, and we're using this lobster. And as I looked down at the lobster, here's the video of the little lobster swimming through, going along his schedule, doing his daily life, whatever it is in your marriage with your kids. You're in control. There's no change. You've got your pinchers going, your feelers out. You're in your same comfort zone, but yet the complete knowledge of God. He has the complete knowledge of our world, the details, every individual in our life, and everything that's taken place in our career. He has the full knowledge. When he sees that something new is coming and we can't hold on to the old, he will push us out. There may be pressure, there may be cracks. And when that happens, we have to know that God is working hard in a divine shift. He's working hard in a divine shift. We are left very vulnerable, naked. And we want to run and hide because we're afraid, well, what if somebody doesn't like it? Or what if I argue with my husband? Or what if my kids and I don't see eye to eye? But during this divine shift, we have to be dependent on God. We have to know little by little to just move in flow with God. It doesn't mean everything has to be in a perfect timely manner. Take a break. Everything that you do is for God and through God. He blesses you. It's not your work. You're anointed to do it. But when you follow and you're dependent on Him, there is where the harvest will be. So just as a lobster underwater, again, is resisting change, we resist change because we're comfortable. We don't like change. I like the way the ministry is going, but God's saying, I see so much more. But you've got to set things up. You have to work on your time schedule a little bit better. You have to get ahead. Well, in order for me to get ahead, there's going to have to be some breaks in 2024 to get ahead with the new. You cannot pour new wine in old wine skins. So as this little lobster wiggles out of its external skeleton, everything, okay, let's liken that lobster onto us. Everything in our spirit, all the dreams, everything God has placed in us is growing larger and it's expanding for the next season. So as that little lobster goes and hides and eats its old shell, yes, it uses the calcium from the old shell and it begins to build the new shell. It is a process. So as God begins to do something new that He may have split in your marriage, you're going to take a little of the old in with the new. And you're going to watch how God begins to pour the new things He's teaching you into a new wineskin, into a new place, a new set of beliefs, a new habits, new routines, new attitudes, new thoughts for each other, a new heart. God will begin to work. Yes, this is a vulnerable season. It's a season of transition. Anytime you're in a season of transition, it's vulnerable. So hide in a safe place. Get in a place where you're in a rhythm and routine with God. Be in the Word and walk out every single day in obedience what He called you to do that day. Whatever He's called you to do is going to re-emerge into the next season, and you'll be fully equipped with the new. The new may look different on how you did things, but you will be fully equipped. So, with my word being alignment, God was realigning in this quarter, this season, and saying, hey, in order for the real new to come out in 2025, I need you to use this season and this quarter of transition. And in order for me to even grab that word thoroughly, I needed to rest 2 times in 2 different ways. I also needed to lose that lobster mentality. Yes, I did. I allowed the pinching and the irritation. I finally said in Florida, that's it. I release it. The God that made the oceans, the heavens, the earth, he is so much bigger. And he has a plan, and I'm just going to be obedient. And I'm going to rework, sit down, and I'm going to play my part by accepting my responsibility to surrender and not worry about control. You have to be flexible with your basics. Again, be flexible. So with that in mind, I want to ask you, do you have a lobster mentality? Are you feeling like you're holding on to this shell and it's pinching so hard that you can't take it anymore? Allow God to just push you out. Allow that pressure to push you out. Let go of the lobster mentality, but hold on to the new shell God's preparing. Take a little of the old that you knew, that you grew with and you knew, and you went from faith to glory, and allow it to form the new that God is creating. So for those that are here and can say, this spoke to an area of my life, I'd love for you to drop where. Where do you feel pressure? Where do you know that God is using a season or speaking to you and you're just dying for the next revelation? Where do you feel that at? And if you do feel that, be ready for some more pressure. Be ready for some more pinching, because that's how God truly pushes us out. And so thank you for your grace. Thank you for letting me be vulnerable and honest with you. The next study is starting May 13th. It's right here. It's called Bloom. It's all done. It's redone. Actually, the study is set up a lot different than all of the studies that you've had here in the past. I know you are thoroughly going to enjoy it. So if you want to know more about that, head below heatherbaxter.com, subscribe to heatherbaxter.com, and you will be getting a newsletter. And in that newsletter, we'll give you the details of everything and when the study's available. The study's going to be available very, very soon. So we're going to push that out, and we are still in second quarter. We're still in second quarter. We'll be starting it. It'll be 6 weeks. We'll end it, and we're still in second quarter. One of the things God laid on my heart is we're going to do a study a quarter, whether it's a 4-week study, a 6-week study, or a 12-week study. We will be working and doing workshops and inner circles all around that topic. So bloom, blossoming in your dreams where you are planted is what the next study is going to be on. I hope that you will join on May 13th, and I pray that this message was a blessing to you. I love you, sisters, and I will talk to you in the next video. Please do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, give a likes up, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Yesterday, there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane. And as the light startled our eyes, we let go of disguise. And now, there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin.